We live in an era of extra stimulation of desire. The craving burns us and deprives us of our energies. The many possibilities of choice we have today distract us, taking us away from our own real and deep contact with our real essence. And then, among all those many stimulations, how do I understand what I really want?
Hi, I am Maya Vassallo di Florio. In this space, I answer the most common questions about personal blooming and empowerment. Touching philosophical, spiritual, cultural, and social themes, I support you in making the difference in the world. I'm here to guide you blooming in the marvelous creature you are, one petal at a time.
Welcome to this new episode of Aphrodisia. Whether you are watching the video from the YouTube channel Maya Vassallo di Florio or that you are listening to the podcast Aphrodisia, I welcome you to this place. I am starting today's episode entitled, Help, I don't know what I want. How can I understand it? Today's episode was born from Michela's question. She wrote me, I have no idea of what I desire. How do I understand it? Every episode of Aphrodisia is born from your questions that you can ask me on the Facebook community group Aphrodite's Temenos. In this group, I will consider your questions, and every one of them, I will gather them and make out an episode of Aphrodisia. So let's get in progressively into the question of today. I take a little step backwards to clarify something I believe necessary. The desire in Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality, which I teach, it's the strength that moves the world. We as human beings move and act in the world to cover the distance between us and what we desire. If there was no desire, there wouldn't be energy circulating. It's the Aphroditic principle of attraction, the same law that calls the planets to revolve one around the other, two people to meet, two objects to meet, sometimes to clash. If there was no desire, we wouldn't move into the world. There would be stasis and stagnation. While in Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality, the approach to desire is different from many other patriarchal philosophy. Desire is not repressed. We don't aim at the liberation from desire, but we want to see it, to recognize it, and to honor and celebrate it. The Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality is based on sacredness of sex, sacredness of pleasure, sacredness of matter, sacredness of desire. So we don't run away from the body nor from desire. It is not demonized, the opposite indeed. The matter is as sacred as the other word. The narrations on which Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality is based are different and start from a different cultural terroir. And according to the spirituality that created those narrations, people actions develop on individual and collective level. And this is true even for those who define themselves not spiritual persons or atheists. It's an illusion to think that spirituality or religion do not influence the culture, because culture is based on the narrations, mythologies, and stories that create people behavior and communities behavior. This makes us understand how much spirituality or religion that we follow influences our life, whether we want it or not. The stories we tell influence politics. Of course, I want to specify that Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality, it's not a religion, but it's a mindset, a modus vivendi, a philosophy, a way of living. So let's get into the core of today's episode about the importance of desire. And here I would like to open a little parenthesis. The desire is fundamental to know who we are. So in Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality, we don't repress desire, but we listen to it and we honor it. So we take the distance both from the repression or hiding of the desire, and from the other side, we work on ourselves so desire does not become craving and obsession. And I will get back to this in a moment. The intent is to learn how to see, recognize, and honor our desire, and to experience it fully, navigating it, fully recognizing the sacredness of our human and earthly experience. Michaela's clever question is yes, but how do I understand what I really want if we live in an era of extra stimulation of our senses? It's true, we live in an era of FOMO, fear of missing out, a totally new fear which is born with the new media, social media especially. This fear of missing out something, of being excluded or being considered a loser if we don't post the last trendy place where we've been, if we've not taken enough photos of the last place on earth we visited, if we haven't read the last book, if we haven't tasted the latest, newest cocktail, and so on. I'm sure each one of us in his, her, their group or community is exposed to FOMO regarding specific subjects connected to the group themes. FOMO is becoming common even in goddess spirituality. So probably listening to this episode, you might recognize you have this sensation of fear of missing out, of being excluded. If you haven't read a specific goddess book, for example, or if you are not informed about the newest findings in archaeological sites, and especially if you haven't posted it, we also live in a hoarding society, collecting objects, experiences, whatever, because we live in a constant fear of losing something and in the fear which derives from a scarcity mindset. There is a huge incapacity to decide. Why did I split the word? To help you notice how this word, decide, has the same Latin root of the Italian word uccidere, which means to kill. Decide, to decide, we have to chop off something in order for something else to be. And when we decide, we die to our old self. We define our new self and we are rebirthed into a new state. In Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality, especially in this period of the year, we feel the energies of Aphrodite's sub-archetype, which is very little known and of which I speak profusely in my book, Aphrodite Unveiled, Introduction to the Great Goddess Mysteries, which I hope will be soon translated into English. Aphrodite's dark aspect, in fact, is unknown to the majority of people. Among her epithets, she is also androphonos, the killer. Obviously, I'm not promoting homicide, but I'm metaphorically inviting you to have the courage to cut off the parts of yourself that you no longer need, letting them die to be recycled if they are no more functional to your blossoming. But they can become your own nourishment, so you can embrace your spiritual and personal growth. Every initiation, every jump of growth, every crisis, it's a little death, like the orgasm, to become every day more and more authentic. Decide means to choose, to define, and deciding and defining who we are, we can affirm and manifest ourselves, our real essence, affirming ourselves in all our splendor for who we really are, not for who somebody else wants us to be, proposing us thousands of shiny objects, trying to convince us that you absolutely need this, you gotta have this, you gotta read this, you need to buy this, otherwise you won't be happy. We have to work on overcoming the fear of choosing, the fear to say no to something, but to say no to something, it's the only way to say yes to something else. And that something else is what is really aligned with who we really are. Saying no is the price to pay to cover that distance between us and what we really desire. Otherwise, we end up taking efforts to reach something we don't really desire. So the fine work we need to do is to cultivate gently and slowly the desire, simplifying our desires, looking at all the thousands and thousands of offerings we have in front of us. We can simplify. I repeat it, simplify. And how we can simplify? Through a continuous process of self-listening. In my book, Aphrodite Unveiled, there are many practices that you can do to discern and decide to listen to what you want and tune in with your real desires. But it is in Italian, so I suggest you to introduce this micro habit of asking yourself every day a question I am about to unveil you. Desire, pleasure, beauty, and sacred sexuality are the core of my courses and teachings, all based exactly on owning our desire. How do you do that? Every day, ask yourself, what does really nourish me in my body, mind, and soul? And act in alignment. We have to train ourselves to decide in full Aphroditic presence, decide which podcast to listen to. We cannot listen to all the podcasts, decide which book to read. We cannot read them all one at a time. I know, me too, I am a passionate book reader, but we need to choose. We need to silence this frenetic tendency to be always active, and we have to learn to stay in the desire. It is not necessary to satisfy it immediately. Desire is different from basic need. We don't need continuously and immediately to satisfy the desire. We can sometimes enjoy feeling it, the feeling of it, honoring and listening to the desire. For example, we can choose which courses to take, we can choose what foods to taste. We don't need to ingest whatever because of the fear of missing out the occasion, but we need to have the courage to choose which experiences to do and what to nourish ourselves with. Just like the Japanese concept kanzo, we can simplify because sometimes less is more, because choosing everything equals with choosing nothing. Don't you think? Don't you agree? I remember when at university I gave the cognitive psychology exam. I'm talking about many years ago. And I was fascinated by learning the fact that the real challenge for we human beings very often is generated from the need to choose, and very often from our incapacity to do it, because this means to overcome the fear of taking the responsibility of our own choices. Today, it's true, life has reached a very high level of complexity. So we are called every day to take hundreds and hundreds of choices. As a priestess of Aphrodite, teacher, and ethical entrepreneur, I very often find myself to take important decisions. Also, having a team to coordinate. Sometimes I take many important decisions in a single day. So the level of stress can be very high because the choices are many. To simplify is the keyword. Using that strategic question I gave you before, what does really nourish my body, soul, and mind? What makes me feel immersed in beauty, in pleasure, or will make me feel so in the future? Because sometimes what we choose does not immediately gives us satisfaction. Maybe we might cover a distance in time, make an effort to get there, but we will have a reward. And the fundamental criteria, the one that is held in a certain sense by the archetype of Aphrodite Epistrophia, she who turns everything into love, or Venus Aphrodite Verticordia, she who changes the hearts, helps us to tune ourselves with the principles of harmony, beauty, and pleasure. So what I really desire has to answer the principle of harmony, beauty, and pleasure. So try introducing in your daily life this micro habit, asking yourself every day, what does nourish me really in my body and mind and soul, and act in alignment with the answer. If you want to get deeper into your desire and into the teachings of Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and sacred sexuality, in the description below, you will find the link to download a precious free content. Harmonize your life with the Aphroditic daily routine. You can just click on the link in the description to claim your free gift. And if you want to get even deeper into the teachings of Aphroditic philosophy and spirituality and sacred sexuality, please know that the enrolling for the training to become a priest or priestess of Aphrodite and sacred sexuality are about to close. This is a path that we do, first of all, for ourselves to change our life for the better and forever, and then to help other people to do the same. If you want to know more, you can click on the link in the description. I hope this episode was useful for you. As always, the best ways to support this project Aphrodisia is to leave some feedbacks, stars, or written feedbacks. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and podcast and click on the bell icon to receive a notification every time a new precious episode is born. And share with your friends that might benefit from these free Aphroditic contents. I wish you a wonderful day and meet you on next Thursday. Bye bye.